like action movies or horror movies where, let's say a group of commandos was in the jungle and a bunch of them died and they were fighting some kind of monsters or something, and they finally see the helicopter coming to pick them up. Some of the guys start celebrating, right? And what do you
Yeah.
think in your head when you watch that scene? You're like, don't celebrate yet. There's like a monster behind you, and he could jump up and get on the helicopter, or who
Yeah.
knows, right? So when is the time for celebration? It's when you're at home at the military base. The nuclear weapons have already destroyed all the monsters in the jungle, and you actually won, and you're like, oh, thank God, right? So the research on the subject shows that there are essentially sort of two poles, two different kinds of people. Some people have some combination of both, but there tend to be abstainers and moderators. This is true to some extent. Some people with sugar, that they like sugar, let's say, if they just have a little bit of sugar, it takes care of their sugar cravings and they're totally cool. So for those people, I would say that having a little bit of sugar or something sweet in their diets is super good to go. Then for the abstainers, these are individuals that if they get a little bit of what they like, they just want more of it, up to a very high point that would make them overfat and unhealthy and so on and so forth. So for them, actually, almost abstaining entirely from something is probably a better practice. When we are going through various dieting phases, this also can change. I think that people tend to be, on average, wherever they fall on the spectrum, more moderators when they are in a maintenance phase or a muscle gaining phase, eating eucaloric diet or a hypercaloric diet. Like when someone's gaining weight and they're eating already a lot of food, and you're like, "Do you want some sugar?" And they're like, "Okay." And if you don't give them sugar, they're like, "Okay," and they just don't really care. But as individuals get deeper and deeper into a fat loss phase, especially towards the end of one, I think more people tend to shift towards the abstainer part of the spectrum, where a moderate amount of sugar is so little and your body craves it so much at the end of a fat loss phase that even a little bit of sugar or something sweet can just make you want that much more of it. And so I think more people could probably have successes as they got further and further into a deep diet. They could turn themselves a little bit more into abstainers, where they maybe just really little on the sugar or not sugar at all, and then or sweet tasting things, and then eventually when the diet is over and the muscle gain phase or maintenance restarts, then they can slowly reintroduce sugar and become more moderators again. I will say that artificial sweeteners are an absolutely excellent tool for this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you really like sugar, but you don't want the extra calories of sugar and you'd rather eat more healthy foods, just take in your sweet foods through artificial sweeteners. You'll have the same great sugary taste, but you'll be able to, it doesn't cure hunger, so you'll still be just as hungry, but then you can fill your hunger up with fruits, vegetables, whole grains, so on and so forth. And while we're on the subject of fruits, I think fruits are an excellent way to taste sweet things, but are very calorie sparse. They're not very dense, and they fill you up a lot, and they're very nutritious because they have a lot of phytochemicals and minerals, vitamins, and other nutrients and fiber. So I think fruits are a real good option. Artificial sweeteners are a real good option. And so because I think a lot of people think, okay, well, I need sugar, that means I need cheesecake. Well, there's a lot of other options that are lower in calories and sometimes 0 calories that you can still have your sweet taste and keep eating a normal diet otherwise.
Interesting. Some abstainers just go limit their fruits because they don't want more sugar.
Yeah, that might be so some people, if they're real serious abstainers and if they've seen that that's worked for them, fruits limiting is not a bad idea because you could just a couple carrots later, you're just craving sugar and that's all you think about. But some abstainers, when they haven't had sugar, I don't want to say sugar because a ton of foods have sugar and they're not even sweet.
Yeah.
Yogurt has sugar, that's not sweet. Most people don't crave plain yogurt. But so sweet tasting foods, some people that are very, very, strong abstainers or in a very deep hypocaloric diet, when they don't have these for a while, these sweet foods, they just kind of stop craving them altogether or just very greatly. And this is kind of look at someone eating a cookie and you're like, I kind of remember what that tastes like, but I don't have like a deep emotional connection to it. Although if you just had half a cookie half an hour ago and you're starving to death because you're on a fat loss diet, you see someone eating a cookie, you think, oh, I can do unspeakable things to a cookie like that. So there's definitely some individual requirements that come with that to make sure that you're on your own side of the spectrum that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk a lot about that maintenance phase just to learn how to eat. I think this would be very helpful for people like this.
Yeah. So people that they finish the fat loss diet and they've been abstaining more and more, as is probably recommended. And a lot of times there's this real disconnect when people finish a fat loss diet. They're like, ta-da, and they just go back out into the free world and eat
Yeah.
a ton of the stuff that they now want. They're essentially primed to want it. And what ends up happening is they regain most or all of the weight, and then it's a sort of vicious cycle. The fat loss diet is not over um, as soon as it technically ends to be in a hypocaloric environment. It's not over because its residual effects still continue. So you have to deal with the residual effects, sort of like you watch movies like action movies or horror movies where let's say a group of commandos was in the jungle and a bunch of them died and they were fighting some kind of monsters or something, and they finally see the helicopter coming to pick them up. Some of the guys start celebrating, right? And what do you
Yeah.
think in your head when you watch that scene? You're like, "Don't celebrate yet! There's like a monster behind you, and you could jump up and get on the helicopter, or who
Yeah.
knows, right?" So when is the time for celebration? It's when you're at home at the military base. The nuclear weapons have already destroyed all the monsters in the jungle, and you actually won, and you're like, "Oh, thank God!" Right?
Finally.
That part of the diet occurs weeks after the hypocaloric diet. In the interim, the helicopter pickup and the making sure you're watching for monsters on your way out. That part is the reintroduction of foods in a higher amount first. So the thing you do is you finish a diet at a hypocaloric amount. The next day you go to isocaloric or eucaloric. Basically, you essentially go to a maintenance calories, and that could be a big jump, but it's maintenance calories probably of the same low palatability, not super tasty foods. You do
Yeah.
that for a couple of days, couple of weeks, you kind of get sick of eating all that stuff and you're not hungry anymore. That's the big thing. Once you're not hungry anymore, you can start to eat a little bit of the sweet foods and the craving foods you like. And then, normally when you're not hungry and you crave a food, you have a bit of that food. And you're like, ooh, that was great. And then you're done because you never were hungry to begin with. It's just you wanted that taste. Now you can do more and more of that, slowly introduce it, and you never regain the weight back like crazy. The problem is when you're hungry, reintroducing the most cravings based foods, that is a big problem because it spikes you and takes you on a journey of, I just want more and more and more and more and more. So you got to ease into that process. Once you've done that over several weeks, sometimes several months, then what you have done is you have successfully cut an amount of fat. And then after you have successfully cut that amount of fat, you've kept it off. That is real success in a fat loss diet, not having lost the fat and then gone back the other direction immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.